Number 8. Arrest of Karen Garner. On January the 26th of 2020, Karen Garner left a Walmart in Loveland without paying for items that amounted to nearly $14. 73-year-old Garner suffered from dementia and sensory aphasia, a condition that involves sufferers not understanding written or spoken language. Staff followed her out and took the items from her, refused to allow her to pay for them, and called the police after Garner pulled off an employee's face mask. Police later found the elderly woman picking wildflowers from a field on the side of the road. First-year officer Austin Hopp aggressively moved in to arrest Garner, who was frightened and confused. Hopp forcefully pulled her arms backwards and handcuffed her. On multiple occasions, the woman said, "I am going home," only to be repeatedly thrown to the ground by Hopp, even though she only weighed around 80 pounds. Third-year officer Daria Jalali came to assist Hopp and helped him hold Garner against the hood of the squad car. They ultimately hogtied the elderly woman. A bystander who questioned the officer's aggression was ordered to leave the area. The senior citizen suffered a dislocated shoulder, a fractured arm, a sprained wrist, and bruises all over her body. The arrested officers failed to provide her with medical care for 6 hours after she was taken into custody. To make matters worse, video surveillance from the station would capture Hopp and Jalali laughing and fist-bumping as they watched the body cam footage from the arrest. They believed that they'd crushed it, and Hopp described the sound that Garner's shoulder had made when he'd dislocated it. Garner's family sued the officers for use of excessive force, and her attorneys released the body cam footage as well as the surveillance footage from the station on YouTube, prompting a public outcry. In the aftermath, Hopp and Jalali resigned and were charged by state prosecutors with a number of offenses, including second-degree assault and official misconduct. Number 7. Kelsey Bereth. 29-year-old Kelsey Bereth was last seen on Thanksgiving Day 2018 in the area of her Woodland Park home. At the time, she was in the company of her fiancé, Patrick Frazee, who was also the father of her 1-year-old daughter. The police found evidence of foul play, and about a month after Bereth's disappearance, they arrested 33-year-old Frazee as the main suspect in her murder. He maintained that he was innocent, but a series of gruesome revelations followed. The key witness in the case was his ex-girlfriend, Crystal Lee, with whom he was reportedly having an affair. Under a plea deal, Lee told the court that on Thanksgiving Day she'd received a call from Frazee, telling her that there was a mess at Bereth's home, which she needed to clean up. Lee arrived to find blood on the living room floor, splattered on the walls, on kitchen appliances, stuffed animals, and other home items. It took Lee 4 hours to clean up the crime scene, claiming she'd done so out of fear that Frazee would hurt her family. Bereth's remains were never found, as according to Lee, they took the body back to Frazee's ranch and burned it. Frazee opened up to Lee about the murder. He'd blindfolded Bereth with a sweater, under the guise that he would have her guess the smell of scented candles. Then, as their young daughter sat in a back room, Frazee beat Bereth to death with a baseball bat. The motive remains unclear, but it's been speculated as a breakup and Frazee wanting to avoid a custody battle. He was ultimately sentenced to life in prison plus 156 years. Number 6. David Smith. In 2016, a South Dakota man died after being struck by an avalanche near Wolf Creek Pass in southern Colorado. 23-year-old David Smith was snowmobiling with 3 companions when he got stuck in a gully and triggered the slide on an eastern portion of the pass. The group was caught in the avalanche, with Smith being completely buried under the hard-packed snow. A second snowmobiler was also partially trapped but managed to break free. The slide occurred at around 4 p.m. and the group went to find emergency assistance, but didn't get a cell phone signal until about 2 hours later. A rescue effort was mounted by local authorities and other riders, but Smith had already succumbed to his injuries by the time that help arrived. Number 5. Suzanne Morphew. Nearly a year after she'd gone missing on Mother's Day 2020, the authorities arrested a man for the suspected murder of 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew. Her disappearance was reported by a neighbor after she'd gone for a bike ride and never returned to her $1.7 million Chaffee County mansion. Suzanne's husband, 52-year-old Barry, was on a work trip to Denver, and he told the authorities that she was asleep at around 5 a.m. when he left. He offered a $100,000 reward, which was matched by a family friend, and put out an emotional video on social media, pleading for the mother of 2's safe return while holding back tears. Yet as the investigation progressed, Barry became the primary suspect in the disappearance of his wife. It was revealed that she'd been having an extramarital affair for nearly 2 years with a high school friend, and that in April they'd been talking about moving to Ecuador together. Texts exchanged between Suzanne and her friends also indicated that she no longer felt safe around Barry, who'd allegedly shoved her and held a gun to her head. On the day that his wife was reported missing, Barry was seen dumping items in various suburban Denver trash containers, a total of 5 times. He reportedly had no reaction upon being shown surveillance photos of him doing so by the authorities. Cell phone data placed this truck in the area from where his wife's bicycle was later recovered. Suzanne's body was never found and the case is ongoing, but if found guilty, Barry could be sentenced to life in prison. Number 4. Moose trampling. In March of 2020, a woman was attacked by a young moose bull near Breckenridge after she'd gotten too close to it. The unnamed victim, reported as being in her 50s, spotted the moose at around 6 p.m. as it was blocking some residents from getting out of their vehicle. She approached it and tried to guide it away, only to be charged by the massive animal. The woman was brutally trampled and suffered several broken bones. She was taken to a local hospital where doctors were able to stabilize her condition, and she was eventually able to give her account of the incident to wildlife officers. They euthanized the bull in accordance to agency regulations, as most research indicates that once a wild animal displays aggression and attacks a human, it's likely to happen again. Number 3. Jepsy Kalungi. Dane and Jepsy Kalungi met through a dating app in 2017 and got married after the latter moved to Colorado Springs from the Philippines. The wedding took place 2 years after Dane's first marriage had ended in divorce. 28-year-old Jepsy was last seen alive in March of 2019, with her family reporting her missing the following month after she'd gone silent in their online communication. When questioned by the police, Dane claimed that he didn't know anything about her whereabouts. He stated that on March the 20th between 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. she'd left him after they'd had a fight. Dane told officers that he'd found text messages between her and someone named Travis, who she was planning to meet. Investigators later learned that he was one of 2 soldiers at Fort Carson who Jepsy was seeing, but could tie neither man to her disappearance. The case went cold in January of 2020, and Dane moved to California. Officers interviewed him in San Diego about a cell phone tower ping that placed him in the same area as Jepsy's cell phone 5 days after their reported fight, but Dane invoked his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. The police were suspicious of him after learning that he'd strangled his first wife, Elaine, on 5 to 7 separate occasions. However, the break in the case didn't come until March of 2021. More than 2 years after Jepsy had gone missing, Elaine called a detective and told him that Dane was briefly returning to Colorado and that he'd asked if they could meet for lunch. She agreed, and during the meetup, they had a conversation in which Dane confessed to her that he'd killed Jepsy. Several days later, Elaine set up a phone call with Dane while a detective was listening and recording. He revealed the full story of the killing and how he'd strangled Jepsy to literally stop the words from coming out of her mouth for a second. Dane then realized that he'd squeezed her throat for too long and had done some damage. He put her in the trunk of his car and drove to the Florissant area, where he dug a hole as deep as he could until 3 in the morning. It was there that he dumped her body. Based on the recorded conversation, Dane was arrested in June of 2021 in Albuquerque. Today's topic was requested by Instagram follower Almighty Fib2. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section, or follow us on Instagram and reach out to us there. Number 2. Beer mauling in garage. In late May of 2021, a Colorado man was severely mauled by a bear in his garage near Steamboat Springs. The incident occurred at around 11 p.m. on a Sunday, when the unnamed victim noticed the open garage door and went to close it. Inside, he saw a mother bear with 2 cubs. The homeowner tried backing away, at which point the sow charged him, most likely as a way of protecting its young. The animal bit and clawed the man, inflicting deep cuts to his legs and head before fleeing the premises. He was rushed to a local hospital and required surgery, but was expected to survive. It was later revealed that the victim had stored birdseed and other items that could attract bears inside the garage. The sow was hunted down in the aftermath by wildlife officials, and traps were set up for the cubs, with the intention of relocating them. Number 1. United Bank Tower Robbery. On Father's Day 1991, a violent bank robbery occurred at the United Bank Tower, currently called the Wells Fargo Center in Denver. The bank had recently changed its policy, requiring guards to be unarmed. At around 9 a.m., a man falsely claiming to be a vice president at the bank asked to enter through a side freight elevator. A guard rode the elevator up to meet him and was held at gunpoint when the doors opened. The guard was forced to take him to an area of the bank located below the basement. It was there that the robber killed the guard, hid his body in a storage room and made off with his access card. He then kept moving through the tunnels and reached the basement area, which housed the guard room and the vault. He killed 3 more guards, 2 of whom he ambushed inside their station, and 1 who'd returned to it after hearing gunshots. Throughout the killing spree, he'd fired a total of 18 bullets on the guards, only 1 of which had failed to reach its targets. He then erased traces of his presence from the crime scene by removing his shell casings, pages from the guard logbooks, and surveillance videotapes. The robber made his way into the vault where 6 tellers were processing cash deliveries. They were ordered to lie on the floor with their eyes closed, and the senior vault manager was told to fill a satchel with cash from the workstations. One curious aspect was that only about $200,000 was taken, even though $2 million were available in the cash room and vault. The tellers would later describe the suspect as a man in his 50s or 60s, with a bandage on his cheek, who was wearing mirrored sunglasses and a brown fedora, along with a grey sports coat and blue or grey slacks. After the satchel was filled, the robber locked the employees into a man-trap, an access room with interlocking doors, and made his escape. In the ensuing investigation, the authorities focused their attention on James King, a retired Denver police officer and former guard at the bank. He'd left the job 10 months prior to the robbery and was in massive debt. A search of his home found no evidence to concretely link him to the crime. The only suspicious items were a detailed map of the bank in a folder marked Plans, as well as several fake IDs showing King's picture and various aliases. The latter were dismissed by a judge since it couldn't be proven King had used the IDs illegally. A jury ultimately acquitted him of all charges after 53 hours of deliberations. The FBI kept King under surveillance for years after the trial, hoping more evidence would turn up, but nothing ever did. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on one of the links on your screen for more videos.